Okay, so thank you for introducing yourself. And we also have V, who is one of the organizers of this session, as well as a volunteer for the whole campaign. I know that they have been working really, really hard on this campaign. Alex is also a volunteer for the fundraising campaign, which I'm so happy to share with you that they have raised over 93,000 US dollars and now in the process of using the money to have a lot of good projects in Vietnam. And Alex, if you want to share more, you don't have to. But if you want to share more about the project, please feel free to do so with us here.
Of course, yes. So, hi, Rachel. Hi, Linh. I just want to say thank you guys so much. We really appreciate your time and like all your help putting this together. This is such a great contribution from speaker like you. So, like Linh already said, we raised about like 90,000, 93,000 plus for the event. And we have different plans to build the school for the kids and also help people to rebuild their houses who are affected by the flood. So it's still on the plan, it's in the progress. And yeah, thank you guys. And we really appreciate.
Yeah, thank you so much. I know how much time it takes to organize things like this. And then we have another participant, Eve. We are just getting to know each other, Eve. If you want to share where you are based and what you're doing in the chat or orally is fine.
Yeah. Hi, lady.
Rồi chứ đem
Thank you
unmute chứ.
for this workshop.
Unmute chứ.
Vietnamese, actually, my Vietnamese name is Me. I based in Boston area, and I'm part of the core team of United for Vietnam as well.
Thank
Very
you.
happy to have you.
Yeah, thank you so much. So maybe I can introduce Rachel to you. I invited her to participate in this webinar to contribute our expertise and spread knowledge as well. Rachel and I actually met each other a long time ago when we both taught at Chatham University here in Pittsburgh. She was the department chair of the business department there. And then from then on, we became friends, and she's now in at William and Mary in Virginia. And I got a chance to meet her just over a month ago. We inspire each other in a lot of aspects. I mentioned in the introduction that I was so intrigued by her approach to teach math and statistics and AI that I myself wanted to go back and learn more about those topics. So today you'll get to hear more from Rachel. And one special thing is that she has just published a book to teach teenagers about the fundamentals of AI, perhaps to prepare them to go into that area of knowledge, but also for the workplace. So without further ado, thank you, Rachel, for being here. And if you want to say a few things.
Oh, thank you so much, Lynn. The pleasure is mine, and I have always been inspired by Lynn's work. She is so enthusiastic and has so much energy and so productive. I work in the technology space. I teach information systems in business schools, and this is probably my fourth business school that I've worked for, and I've always had ideas for apps and so on. So I was very inspired when Lynn actually created her own app. And I have been teaching, development and all these things all these years and never actually owned an app myself. So, I'm always a big fan of Lynn and also her books. I saw her publishing one book after another. And so one day I finally decided to publish a book with my team. I have my own team teaching children about data science. And I think Lynn's work really gave me a lot of confidence because even though I knew nothing about how to publish a children's book, I saw her work and I know that I can always count on Lynn for advice and mentoring. And that's exactly what she did. I got so many good suggestions, advice, And also it just gave me a lot of confidence on how feasible this is. And it was still a lot of work to actually have a book together. And our book's still not published, unfortunately, but it should be published anytime soon. I'm really hoping within the next 24 hours or so. But this would not be possible without Lynn's encouragement and advice. So I'm really grateful that I'm able to be here and share my experience with everyone.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Rachel. Actually, with this webinar, I was thinking about what may be useful to share with you. So we combined many different topics based on our expertise, but also our experience with book publishing. I think that when you read the description, you can see that we can share about language education if you're interested in it, book publishing, of course, and AI, math education, statistics, or even just questions about navigating our career and maybe multiple projects apart from our full-time job. And I see another participant here. I know him. He's actually a math teacher, right? Anh Hoan. So welcome to our webinar here. So a question to you first before maybe we dive into a topic. What topic would you be interested in hearing the most? So I mentioned language education, AI education, math education, book publishing.
So let me take a look at the chat.
Okay, AI and book publishing. So Rachel, maybe you can go first and share with us what you have been sharing with me in terms of your approach to teaching math and statistics and AI. An
Okay.
example that you can give us.
Okay, well, I'm more than happy to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, although I probably need permission to do that.
Oh, do you? Okay, let me add you as a co-host.
Okay, so I'm sharing now, and this is the cover of our book that's coming out anytime soon. So still under review with Amazon. And this is, we self-publish the book. So we're dealing with Amazon and Kindle direct publishing directly, which has pros and cons. And I'm also publishing a book with a publisher. So it's a very different experience. But here, definitely, you know, it's like talking to a bot or an AI. I don't always get a lot of feedback on when this is going to happen. So it's a little bit nerve-wracking. But as you can see, this cover, I mean, we actually have revised it a bunch of times, and they would, you know, like Amazon will complain that the spine is too wide, the words are too big. You have to make it a little smaller. The margin has to be a little bigger, and all that kind of stuff. It's very nitpicking, and we don't always know what is gonna be the next thing that we have to edit, even though we follow all the guidelines. But yeah, but just having a cover like this, working with an artist, all that is a new experience for me because I'm a very technical person. The only artwork I can do is like PowerPoint. So let me show you like what I typically use for teaching AI in the business school. So this is my team, you know, on the right-hand side is my student, Daniel C., who did all the artwork. And the shorter student, Elisa Young, did all the promotion and actually a lot of technical editing because this is a book about AI. So we also need to make sure all the answer key is correct, all the scientific facts are correct, and you would know, you would think that we all know everything, like we're experts and we study. And this is such a simple book. It's for, you know, middle schoolers, but still, I mean, there are lots and lots of details that could go wrong. And so it was very, very extensive editing among, actually, there are four of us. There's a math teacher on the team as well. Over, I would say, maybe 10 months of intensive work. So AI is full of buzzwords, right? So machine learning, deep learning, neural networks, prediction, weight, parameters, a trillion parameters, training data, model. These are model error. These are all like words that we used to be only for people who study AI, but now they're in the news everywhere, and it becomes very overwhelming for everyone to understand what they are. And this is usually what we show as a neural network diagram when we study AI in college and grad school. But this usually intimidates a lot of people. And most people think I'll never be able to understand what this is. But the reality is, if you take a circle and you just, take 3 circles before it and 1 circle after it, and it actually is this, and just put it under microscope, you can see that a circle is actually within a circle. It's a symbol for a very simple equation that everyone on this call and everyone in middle school can do. But basically, it's an equation that takes 3 input features. Let's say we have a customer and we know the customer's age, gender, and income. All we need to do is put numbers in there, and then we will multiply them with weights. And weights are just other numbers that you can multiply with, and you will add them up, and then you will get a score for that customer, and then we will apply an activation function to if the output of this equation is greater than 0, it's a positive number, we will make a decision of 1. And the decision at the end will come out on the right-hand side. Otherwise, you will get a 0. And the 0, 1 decision is just a yes/no decision for maybe whether your credit card is approved or not. So each one of the units in a huge neural network is just like this. And the computer just does a lot of these at the same time. And so this is what I actually teach in the business school. And I will print this out, and we have handouts, and I will have people hand compute a neuron together. I also have Excel, simulations that I could show if we have time. But basically, this is what I do. I actually use a lot of worksheets, and I just have people compute a neuron by hand until they feel confident that they understand exactly how the neuron works. Then we go back to this diagram, and you have a trillion. Like, people can imagine and extrapolate to millions and millions of such circles if they understand one single circle correctly. And we may have another neuron, and then you can actually put them together. So a network of neurons, you can just compute one neuron after another. You can actually compute 2 neurons, and then the 2 neurons output will become the input of the next neuron. And you can do all of this in Excel as well. So actually, if instead of circles, if we just imagine these squares, it's actually just a spreadsheet. And people can do spreadsheet, one functions output feeding into another formulas input. I mean, people can do this. In Excel, they feel very confident of doing that, especially in the business school. We use Excel all the time, but they have no idea that a network of neurons, which is what we call neural network or deep learning, these are all just different names of something like this. And that you can just build something like this in Excel. And that, I think, just makes people feel so much more comfortable when they realize, oh, like, I can actually do this. And a neuron really is just an Excel cell. Usually people feel very, very happy, like they have that aha moment. They finally understand it because we're able to connect all these really, really scary buzzwords to something that they're actually very skilled at. So this is usually my typical approach. And then I have been teaching this for years. And then I realized, these are really just middle school, because I also teach math as well. So I have to do a lot of research on what I went to school in Taiwan. I didn't do my K-12 here, but I have to do a lot of research on what people learn in the US, because my students are mostly Americans, and I have to be able to root all my teaching in their actual experience. So I have to like research like when do people learn algebra? When do they learn multiplication, addition? Like can they actually deal with negative numbers? And all this is actually like this type of math is maybe sixth grade, seventh grade. And I, so I thought, well, we could totally teach this to little kids. I was running an online education program with my former student Ronnie and also my sister Peggy. And we were teaching data science to maybe 9 to 12 kids 9 to 12. And we would teach them these neural networks and they have no problem understanding it. You just have to present it correctly. So eventually we decided that we no longer run that online school, but we thought that would be really great to capture the materials that we use for teaching into a book. And that was the beginning of the design of this book called AI, the Magic Box. And so it took us a while to find an artist, but we basically found a student at William Mary who is willing to do this. And so this is the artwork that she has come up with. So this is her imagination of each one of these neurons, and she actually, we would talk extensively about how I imagine the neuron, like how we can tell little kids or communicate these key essential ideas to our sort of young audience. And one of the key ideas I have is that we really want to be able to show that this is something that's almost like a square. You're just storing values inside it. It's not a circle, because I do feel like the circle confuses a lot of people. And I think, the early AI scientists, they chose the circle just as a convenient way to draw a diagram, but I think they never realized like it really confuses a lot of people, and it'll be so much easier if it's a square. And so I can just say, well, think about this as an Excel cell. So that's where the boxy design comes from. And then we just show the different steps in here, and instead of circles, right? So we have these input to our cups so that we can receive values, and then the weights are on the squiggly arms, and the ways we show that some of the arms are big, some of the arms are small, just to show the idea that weights can be big and small, and we have all these narratives to explain what weights are really. Like if you want something to be very important, like if, for example, if you think age is very important, then you will multiply it with a big number to make it a very important feature. If you think gender is unimportant, then you will multiply it with a very small number. So with the artistic drawings, we can illustrate these ideas more vividly and communicate them more, sort of more visually to our readers. On the right-hand side, we have a display of the AI's outcome, like the output is 0, so it's 0 or 1, approved or not approved. But then we also have correct answer. So that's really to communicate the idea of supervised learning. And in our story, one of our main characters became the supervisor, and the supervisor's job is to push the red or green button to help the AI box teach the AI box and communicate whether the AI's prediction is correct or not by providing feedback. So that's our, we actually show the 4 steps of AI model training, right? So you will calculate the score, and then you will make a guess. The guess is 0 or 1, and then the supervisor will come in and explain whether the guess is correct or not. And that error is going to help the AI go back and change the weights and try again. So that's the last step, which is repeat. So we have all these different illustrations. We have worksheets inside the book to show how training works. And we have the stories to like help the parents, the teachers to sort of navigate the storyline, and step by step. It's a very gentle and very, very simple step, one at a time. And then we will show them how to compute these things with very clear illustrations. And then the reader can try on their own. So we have lots of worksheets for them to to try different computations, different scores, different weights, and then we also have answer key provided at the end of the book. So that's sort of a high level. Let me see. I can share the book. Just real quick here. I don't know how to get out. Oh, here it is. Okay. So this is the book cover, and the book is here. So the book is about 100 pages, and you can see that we have stories. We have, we say that there's 3 steps to AI. So the first step is to collect data, right? So we will have a lot of data collection activities. We explain what we mean by data collection. There's a conversation between mom and 2 kids. And the kids really want a puppy for a birthday. And mom said that, well, you have to use this AI, the magic box, you have to learn how to use AI before we can get a puppy, and we will actually learn how to use AI to find a puppy that we can adopt. So that's sort of the premise of the story. We actually try many different things. We started with cars and, picking out using AI to detect different kinds of cars, and the story didn't really work very well. I actually had 20 of my students, so I teach MBA. And my MBA students read my book and provided feedback for extra credit. And so based on their feedback, we actually completely changed our story. And you can see that we actually have little boxes where we explain these words. But, in the story, we have these main characters ask all these questions that, a kid would ask. Like, they think that AI is weird, they don't know what it means, and, they aren't really interested, but mom is forcing them to learn. But, they discover that it's actually a lot of fun. And they go to the library together, meet AI, the magic box, and they are on the way to the library. They have conversations about how to detect different features of objects, right? So mom will have all these conversations, and then mom is a data scientist, so we use that as a character to kind of explain the scientific facts to the kids. And then we have all these illustrations about how the model works. Data goes in on the left-hand side, the decisions come out on the right-hand side, and how we would collect data, right? So in the library, they research about different dogs, and they would write it down, the information down, and we show them how to organize a data table, rows and columns, right? And then they have to practice, right? So we introduce a bunch of different words, and then we have a data set for them to practice with, right? We'll give them different data sets that kids will encounter in their everyday life, like just a data table for their own family, right? And we can ask them about features and records, all these like technical words that we use for organizing a data table, ask them to identify them, ask them to recode. Actually, this is dummy coding or one-hot coding, but we teach them how this works, and they have to practice and maybe add a row, add a column, right? Come up with more features. And we will give them, like an extra row and an extra column, and give them some challenges, and they have to decide if it's a row or is it a column, just as a way to help the kids, the readers, confirm what they are able to do, their understanding, right? And at the end, we usually give them an open-ended project. So we will give them a data sheet like this, and they can fill it out for their own exploration. So we also are very careful about the design of these tables. So like, for example, in AI, we have this word called labeled data. So the whatever output that you're trying to predict is called the target, and the target comes with correct labels. So we actually shape the last column as labels so that, just visually it's easier to remind people. Those of you who have taken any sort of statistics, that all the columns look the same. And so it can be a little tricky for a beginner to actually remember what is your target, what's your dependent variable, what's your independent variable. So we just try to like make all these things a little bit more visually attractive and distinctive. And we use color codes to keep track of dependent versus independent variables, and just makes everything sort of easier for the kids to follow along. So this is the second step. Training is a big chapter. So we have, oh, I'm sorry, we keep getting out of it. But I would like to just kind of stop here and see if anybody has any questions.
I'm looking forward to having the book because I have a small daughter myself, and I often imagine myself learning things again, learning math again, learning numbers again, and really get to the conceptual understanding of these concepts. Because I feel that when we learn these things in Vietnam, or maybe I have forgotten, we don't really get to the conceptual understanding of a lot of concepts and being hands-on like this. I cannot help but ask one question because we have talked about this, and I know that you often use food as examples to illustrate some concepts. I remember you told me about explaining variance, right? The concept of variance to your college students. Can you tell us that story in terms of how you explain it?
Sure. Yeah. So let me see if I can find my chocolate jar somewhere. um,
The issue with wanting to learn with my daughter is that she's just 6, but she already tells me like none of your business. Whenever I ask her about what
uh-oh.
happens at school, she's like none of your business. So I'm sure it can be a challenge um, when working with kids.
Oh yeah. But they will come around. I mean, a lot of those are phases. My son is 14, and he will say certain things that kind of hurt my feelings sometimes, but then they come around. They grow out of that phase, and sometimes, I think, over time they learn to appreciate different things, I guess, So the variants of candy jar. So in the very beginning of any kind of statistic course, we always talk about variance. And variance is a very technical. So I think I often remind students that these words are really unfortunate, right? Like statistics, just like AI, is stuck with all these buzzwords that I think only like these very nerdy scientists came up with, and they didn't realize that the rest of us, like billions of people, are stuck with learning these words. When they came up with the word, it was just the best word that they could think of to explain it to their peers. And usually it's just, some other mathematicians, and they didn't have to communicate this broadly to the general public, right? It was supposed to be some very, very technical jargon, maybe like only 3 people need to know at a conference, at a time when most of the world was illiterate. Like they didn't really have a social responsibility to communicate this to everyone. But then, these became very important scientific findings, and we're stuck with all these jargons because you want to be consistent over time. But these words really don't mean anything. So a lot of times when we teach these big words, and keep in mind that variance and standard deviation is something that a lot of in the US, a lot of people learn it in high school because there is an AP statistic course that a lot of high achieving kids take. So most of my graduate students have taken stats in college because many majors require statistics. And then many of them, of course, especially these days, for kids to save tuition money in college, they often have taken a lot of AP courses. So AP statistics is something many kids have taken. But so they have gotten very good scores. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to get into William and Mary, but they have no idea what these things mean, right? Because they've never actually see variance other than this equation here. So what I usually try to do is to visualize a very sort of archaic and bizarre statistical word that nobody understands other than memorizing it, right? And memorize. So a lot of learning about statistics, memorizing these words and memorizing the equation associated with it. Get an A and then you move on. You never use the word variance anymore because like nobody says, like who talks about variance in everyday life, right? But so what I want to do usually is I want to visualize an equation like this using colors and also using chocolates and things that people enjoy, especially physical things that I can actually bring to class. And so we can have a variance jar. And then after we compute the variance, then we can actually eat a variance, right? And so I think these sort of physical, or in-person, like actual bodily experience is what helps people really truly understand these ideas at a deeper level. So variance is of a categorical variable. When we talk about binomial distribution, these are all big words. A lot of people are like, I have no idea what these words are unless you're like a STEM student. But everybody understands what a binomial distribution is when they see a candy jar, because binomial just means you have two kinds of things. Bi just means two. And so if I give you the probability, and everybody knows the probability, like if you have everything together, it's 100%. But if I tell you that this jar is 70% Kit Kats and 30% Reese's, I think everybody understands it intuitively, right? Especially if I have the jar right in front of them, I can ask them to make predictions about how likely they're gonna get a Kit Kat versus Reese's if they just draw a chocolate blindly. And so with that, we can start to talk about all sorts of properties of binomial distribution. We talk about how to calculate the variance. And most importantly, we talk about, I will show them these three different jars, and I will ask them which one has the biggest variance. And variance really is just diversity. So if we talk about the different numbers, how to compute it, but really I will always cross the word variance out and say, well, in today's age, instead of variance, we just talk about diversity. And because in the US, everybody talks about diversity every day, everybody understands what diversity is. So when I ask people which jar has the biggest variance, and can anybody tell me which jar has the biggest variance?
In the chat, I'm sure.
Mm.
We have data scientists and math teachers and
Right, but you don't have to be a mathematician to
right.
have an intuition of variance,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, so we get an answer C, another C, right? So yeah, so C is the correct answer, right? So if you think about diversity, which jar is more diverse? And the answer is C, because A has zero diversity and B has zero diversity. And variance is just a mathematical measure of diversity, right? And so A and B, without knowing the formula of variance, you should have this intuition that variance equals zero, because it just has no variance. It has only one type of chocolate. You have two types of chocolate mixed together, then you will have some sort of variance, right? And I will also show people like different variance jars, and actually the 50-50 mix kind of jar will have the biggest variance, right? So if you have a jar that's 90% Kit Kat and 10% Reese's, then you will know that jar has less variance than a 50-50. And so with visuals like this, and I will actually have different chocolate jars, and we can talk about all sorts of different properties, including sampling and predictions with just a few different chocolate jars. And just with a few like very simple demonstrations and exercise, everybody will have a full understanding of variance. And
Yeah.
this is something that I don't know how many of you have experienced this before, but this is something I would say the variance, especially the equation variance, for variance for a categorical variable like this is something that is a mystery for probably 99% of the students who actually have finished a statistics course. They have only memorized the formula. They actually have never seen what a
Yeah.
variance looks like.
Yeah. It's so interesting. I'm not a math teacher, but I think that I will share a little bit about language education, and we share something in common, or at least my take is that we need to get to the concepts, right? To the concepts, to the meaning, and we kind of hook the new knowledge on what students already know, and that's why these examples are so important to really get students to understand the concepts. So I love this also at the kind of a more broader level of how we should approach education in the sense of bringing really good examples, really relevant examples, help students to get to the concepts of things, right? Not just the process and the procedures. And for language education, I can share with you a little bit, and I hope we have time for questions because I know you may have better questions for Rachel than me. So maybe I can start by sharing with you my journey in terms of language education. I come from Vietnam, as you know, and I did my undergraduate degree in Vietnam. I came to the US to do my master's. And then I got a full-time job directing an English language program at Chatham University where I met Rachel. And then from then on, I started my doctorate while working full-time. And my work mostly involved teaching and working with international students. But one thing after another, I started my own online school. The reason is that I wanted to do more and I wanted to channel my energy into something that I could control more. So that's why sometimes I started work for myself. And then when I had my daughter, I was inspired to write more. It was just such an interesting, it was an interesting experience bringing her up, and there was just so much emotion and feelings associated with being a new mother that I started to write what I call poems, something that I hadn't done before in my life at all. But because I'm a language teacher, I like working with language, working with words. So the first, now I don't remember what my first poem is anymore, but the first one maybe that I wrote was, I call it Translanguaging Hallie's First Words. I wrote it in English first. It features the first words that my daughter had in Vietnamese first, but then they were gradually replaced by English. And I put it in some kind of remix, I mean, into a kind of a poem there. And that book went on to be the Stories of Vietnam project actually adopted it, and then we printed it together to distribute it to Vietnamese families in the US, I think maybe to over 1,000 families. So that was my first poem that was later on published. My second poem was called I named it Opposites Game first because sometimes my interaction with my daughter was like an opposites game. We kind of contradicted each other. She said no a lot to what I told her. So I started writing about opposite concepts. And then from then on, I turned it into my first picture book called Tug of Words. It's not tug of war, but tug of words. And it also features the differences in my family. I'm Asian, right? My husband is actually a Caucasian, and my daughter is half black, half white. So I also want to feature the differences in the family, but most of my stories or whatever I write also show this kind of dialectics. I often call it dialectics of things. We have this feeling of familiarity, but also strangeness in some way. My experience in the US is a combination of feeling the feeling of strangeness and then later on familiarity and the similarities among us, but also the differences among us. So basically, that is the idea for the first book. And then from then on, I started to publish even more, and I can show you some, since you're interested in publishing, I don't know where our share button is. Share screen. Oh, here. Zoom has just changed, I think. So okay, so you are actually looking at my Kindle Direct Publishing account. I have mostly self-published. I have a few books published by other publishers, traditional publishing, as we call it. So you may distinguish between traditional publishing and self-publishing. A lot of my books are self-published, but I also have other books that are traditionally published. Maybe I go from the bottom up. This was my first book, Tug of Words, in both English and Vietnamese. And then here I played the role of an editor. I was so impressed by poems written by a small young girl in Vietnam that I actually contributed to editing it and published it. And then I also wrote a book focusing on IELTS speaking for students who want to improve their speaking skills for a standardized test. And then this is another children's book that I wrote featuring the 4 seasons in the US and Vietnam through conversations between Hallie and Bo, the 2 cousins of the same age living on 2 sides of the globe, right? So that is this book, the 4 seasons together book in both English and Vietnamese and English only version. And then because of my background in language education, I also want to bring it to other languages. So I also published this book, Vietnamese Learning Games, to allow kids to work in pairs while doing a game with each other or doing a task with each other. It is actually a technical concept in language teaching. And then from this book, I collaborated with another colleague to turn it into Spanish learning games. So talking about this, I can also share with you that my background has been in teaching English, but now it has been expanded to other languages because I started developing my app called EduLink Speak. The idea is to connect 2 students to work in pairs while doing a task together on the mobile format. And then I have been working on it for a few years now. And then from my experience with EdTech, I just accepted another position as a Chief Learning Officer of Pangaea Chat. It has funding from the National Science Foundation, so we have a bigger funding there to develop it further. Having a team of developers and myself as more like a learning design person, kind of implementation of the app in teaching and research. So I will share another screen here just to show you the app very quickly. It has 12 languages currently, and I'm using Spanish. I'm learning Spanish through the platform. So you can see that basically it is an instant messaging platform built for language learning. And I can talk with the bot or I can talk with other people. And then the system allows you to compose messages even when you don't know anything in the target language, but gradually you acquire more language. So let me give you an example here. I was talking with a bot about Spanish and English, and I asked it what differences there are between Spanish and English, and it says the gender and verb conjugation. But so English is more simple, right? So maybe if I want to say, I agree with you. Or I know that because I'm a language teacher. I know that because I teach English. And then usually I try to use whatever Spanish I have to compose this sentence, but today I just want to show you the translation here. Then it will help me to convert that message into Spanish. So I say now, okay, I chose it wrong. Okay. And then I know that. Oh, this is quite new to me here. Because it's wrong. And you can click on why. It's also wrong. Oh, okay. I don't even need because this is because. So that's how you learn, because you engage with it and you realize that that maybe you realize you learned something new. So this word means because, and now I need a word that means teach, and this one I know means teach English here. So that's what I'm working on these days. Like I say that I'm learning Spanish, but there are other languages, and this platform allows students to interact with each other. So it's not just about talking with the bot, but it is also about communicating with each other. And I will show you what languages. I want Vietnamese to be added, but there's some technical challenges here that maybe who knows, some of you can help. So let me see here my learning settings. And if I want to change my target language, I can do these are the target languages that we currently have. So you can see that it's already pretty good. And then in terms of the base languages, we support a lot. I haven't counted these, but there are a lot of base languages that you can use here. But anyway, I'm gonna stop here and see if you have questions to either Rachel or myself. Thank you, Rachel. And Rachel, you can share your LinkedIn too, or I'll find it and share it with everyone.
Yeah, I just share my LinkedIn page in the chat, so feel free to connect with me. And thank you, Lynn, for such a wonderful presentation. I always enjoy your work.
Thank you. So if you haven't had any of my book, and if you buy it, I will donate the proceeds to the campaign. I can share with you the link to all of my books there. I have an author profile on Amazon, so I'll put it here in the chat. And when Rachel's book, comes out, we're happy to share that too. But now we have 10 minutes in case you have questions.
Hello, I have a question for both of you. I'm a PhD candidate, and I had to, TA some classes, and I'm on my track to be on some faculty position. And my study is kind of a theoretical field of computer science, and I always have trouble explaining especially very abstract concept to students. Sometimes the concept require a lot of math and a lot of background, but still, my job is to explain them to students, and they really struggle with that. I don't feel any, not quite any, but I don't feel much struggle understanding this concept. But it's really difficult to explain them to students. And another thing is the student I taught, they were mostly graduate students, so I consider them having such a good background on abstract topic. Do you have any recommendation on some approaches that I can start experiment with my student to improve the comprehension?
Yeah, well, so thank you, Don, for the question. So I feel your pain. I think we operate in a very similar space, and because if you are very strong in math, you have to remember that the majority of the world is not like you, right? So you're trying to communicate to people who can't really see that mental image that you may have. My solution is, and my students are even less mathy than yours, and so if you in computer science are struggling with that, imagine my world. But I have worked with colleagues at Carnegie Mellon um, um, for teaching AI to non-majors. And myself, I also consider teaching AI in the business school as teaching AI and math to non-majors. And there are many, many actually tools that you can use, and even to computer science, and even, like even computer science professors at Carnegie Mellon will say that their students need these sort of different teaching sort of teaching approaches to help people see the math and understand math in a more concrete way. And a lot of it is really, most people are unable to visualize. So I always use visualization. So I think I show you some examples, and I would also like to share some other professors' examples. At Carnegie Mellon, if you email me, I can send you some of the resources that are available. So they will visualize the what do we call the like, for example, large language models and embeddings and all these things are very difficult for people to understand. If you have a visual, I think people will have a more intuitive understanding, and having intuition is very, very important before you actually introduce the math. So so number one is you should start with intuition. And another professor I really follow there are a couple of people who are really, really good at this, right? So one is Tom Ye at Boulder. He has visualized it. I mean, he teaches AI by hand. So he really believes that you have to be able to draw these things. And I do the same thing. Like, you need to be able to just like do like in a model in Excel spreadsheet like this, or by hand, and AI by hand. He has a whole website called AI by hand, and would just have these like hand-drawn models, and also like these demonstrations instead of equations. Many of my students have trouble understanding equations, but if you show them things in Excel, they actually understand. So like, for example, the sigma function, like I equal 1 to n, many people don't understand. My students in business school, 90% of them don't know what a sigma is. But if you show them that sigma is really just adding from row 1 to row n, or n equal 100, whatever, they understand it. So having some sort of concrete visual is, I think, it's number one most important approach. And then from that you actually have to show them the equation right next to the visual, and over time they can become more independent reading the math without the visuals. But the visual is key to make something concrete, right? So when you say abstract, I think you realize that what you're trying to teach is very abstract. Abstract means that people are unable to see it. It's called abstract because it's not concrete, right? So make sure it's concrete. You have a concrete visualization before you introduce the abstract. And math is very efficient. I think it's, in a way, it's too efficient. So these sort of visualization, worksheets, and I also do a lot of worksheets. Right. So instead of just code, and also like pairing the code with the worksheet is very important. I have many, many, many visuals of every little thing about AI. It's all visuals.
Mm. Yeah, I don't think I have a better answer than that. You asked the right person in the room here. So please feel free to connect with Rachel, and she perhaps can share with you the resources. But I think that the starting point is realizing that what you know is not what the students know, right? We have this illusion of competence for ourselves, and also in the room as well, we assume that people share the same background and knowledge and understanding, but it's definitely not the case. So I just want to add that, but Rachel can share more resources.
Okay, thank you for answering my question. Definitely very helpful.
Yeah, well, you're welcome. I'm happy to send you. There are lots of websites and resources that I use. So depending on the specific questions you have, I'm happy to share more. But I think a lot of times people also have, I think a lot of times people, they're unable to understand really because they're missing a lot of fundamentals. So that's why when I teach neural network, I never teach like this huge neural network. I teach one neuron and one little thing and the simplest activation function. Because like once you master that, then you can do multiples as like a Lego system, right? So you can build a lot because a lot of people are very smart, but they just like the basic elements are not even mastered yet, and they're trying to do so much, and then when the foundation is shaky, the understanding is always shaky. And you will identify that if you pay attention to what your students are talking about, and you will realize like a lot of it is not what you teach, is really because their K-12 education is shaky.
Yeah, I will send you an email and
Okay.
ask you for more guidance on this topic. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Does anybody else want to ask a question? I know that we are approaching the hour, so we don't want to keep you too long, but please feel free to connect with us on LinkedIn or Facebook. I am also on Facebook a lot. And Alex or anybody from the organizing team, do you want to say anything about the campaign? Are you calling for more donations or anything that we can help out more?
Yes. Thanks, Mr. Rachel and chị Linh, for talking today. I really enjoyed the talk, and I guess I will email both of you after because I'm still interested and have some question about the book publication. So that is awesome information today. So this session is actually the last one for our campaign. And I feel that this is make it so special because it just ended a very high note. And yes, we are wrapping it, and now we will totally focus on how we can effectively delegate the fund to the people who need this. So yes, thank you guys. You guys are the last one, but we saved the best for last.
Thank you so much, and congratulations on such an achievement. I know that a lot of good things will happen from your contribution. So thank you, everyone, for being here with us on a Saturday. And please keep in touch and maybe see you again. Anh Juan, do you want to say anything?
No.
Yeah. So thank you. See you next time. We'll see you on social media. Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Everyone. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, everyone.